Welcome to Free Range American. We have Trevor Thompson here in the office. I feel like I'm in an NPR show right now where it's like the sweaty balls shtick from Saturday Night Live. Well, hey, it's good to see you, man. I've been gone in Texas for, over a month now.
Yeah.
So I think we exchanged 5 texts, give or take.
I figured you were busy with being not busy.
I was super busy. I was really, really busy. There's a lot of stuff to do down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the other half of the company to run.
Well, yeah, the other 1/3. The 1/3 here in Salt Lake, 1/3 down there, 1/3 basically in Manchester. I always call it Nashville, which is the inappropriate thing to tell people. But I'm so used to telling people it's just outside of Nashville because they don't know where Manchester is. But I did have a bunch of guys from the plant tell me that they were pissed off that I keep saying
hey,
Nashville.
Look, man.
I know it's in Manchester.
Preface, I know.
Trust me, I know.
Not my fault that nobody knows where it is.
Nobody knows Manchester, so you have to give them some type of point of reference. Hey, it's roughly 45 minutes to an hour outside.
I mean, would you tell somebody that you're, from Provo or just Salt Lake City?
Yes, and yes. I always have to, where I'm from originally, which is Lewiston, Idaho, I have to tell people either it's an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Coeur d'Alene, or it's 5.5 hours north of Boise. They do not know the city, and there's 30,000 people there. It's not as if it's an insignificant footprint.
It's not a village.
But unless they're from there, they just don't know. So I apologize. Coffee roasters in Manchester, the Black Rifle Coffee employees. I do know you're in Manchester. It's very difficult to describe every time. So I just say Nashville so I don't have to go into the definition. Yeah. Anyway, man, it's great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, dude, it's been a while. I guess a whole 6 weeks. Our last podcast did really well, by the way. I think.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
Yeah. A lot of people were pretty stoked because we got into...
We were sharing some text back and forth about some of the messages that people had been putting in raised planter beds and doing home workouts. So that was really cool to see. Like, immediately people were on it.
Man, I've gotten a ton of really positive feedback from that where people were just using this as an opportunity. Listen, I'm going to be off of work. I've got a couple messages from guys that were, hey, I wasn't laid off, but I can't go into work. So I'm just spending more time at home. You guys gave me some great ideas. And, that's the same for me, by the way. So I've been discovering a few things that I've been able to get into and get a little bit deeper in. Not necessarily about myself. I think my wife has discovered that she prefers that I'm in the office most of the time, so that's good. That's a good thing to discover. No, I spend a lot of time with my kids and thinking about my kids. More so, I think about my kids all the time, but to have a daily interaction of substance is a challenge when you work from early in the morning till late at night. And most of the time, I see him in the morning for breakfast, and then I see him in the evening for stories and for the bedtime routine. Give or take, there's a few nights in there where I don't, and obviously I've spent a lot of time on the road. So there are nights when I miss stories. There are mornings when I miss breakfast. But I try to hit those 2 hard times. Yeah. 90% of the time, I don't have a lot of conflict within my schedule at that point. I make that a point of priority. But it is so interesting to me to spend, because my daughter, my 6-year-old, she's not in school. My 3-year-old's not in school. Obviously, she's 3, but she's not even in preschool. So, dude,
it's just in life school.
Talk about fun, man. In Texas, there are all kinds of bugs and snakes, fish. So we've been
tigers.
Able to spend tigers. If you're in where was that? Where's that documentary?
Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, you got tigers in Oklahoma. But we had a great adventure. I got to work.
That's part of why I wasn't trying to bug you.
Oh yeah, it's not really bugging. You're one of the few people that when I see a text from them, like, oh God, what are they? What's going to happen now?
What does this guy
building
need?
burnt down?
Yeah. No, it's been kind of the same at my house. I put in some planters, have been those have been growing great. I've done a ton of housework, like things that aren't on the back burner, but were like secondary and tertiary needs. Like, do we really need to fill gravel in? And well, no, not right now. Well, now, okay, yeah, now let's do it now.
Right.
Like now there's literally time to sit and let this stew and get done the right way. So I hope that everybody is, and it seems like a lot of people are taking the time at home or the time away from their jobs, either forced or not, to be productive in a way that was different from before.
I hope so. I think, if I have anything to offer to people, I've continued to remind people in the company, which I felt like an officer when I put it out, but, keep going back to the 3 Ps, maintain positivity, be professional, and be polite.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we've been in a very fortunate position that we haven't had to furlough people. So, it's easier, I think, to maintain the 3 Ps when you have a job. So, we're not discounting the fact that if you've lost your job in this. I think what we're trying to get to is I have had a significant amount of challenging circumstances for extended periods of time in my adult life. Yeah. Business has not always been, this way for us. And before
Rainbows
that,
and unicorns.
Living in a shipping container overseas, getting shot at for a paycheck is not exactly the high point of professional existence.
Yeah. Well, what's the joke? It's like 90% waiting around and bullshit, and 10% it might be cool.
Yeah, might be cool.
Might be cool.
Might be cool. And I've tried really hard over the last 6 weeks to tune out of the news because honestly, it's a fucking waste of time.
It's not just a waste of time. It's a waste of your mental energy, right? Like you're putting cognitive load into that stuff, and it's almost always an echo chamber. If it's a spin up thing, if you're on the right, you're watching right wing stuff that'll spin you up more and make you even angrier. And if you're on the left, you're watching left wing stuff that will spin you up and get you even angrier. And it's only parroting information that you either thought you knew or you had some sort of like claimed knowledge of. And it's affirmation. It's this revolving door of confirmation bias, both ways.
Right.
None of it's good for you.
No. How is it directly impacting your life every day? Like,
or
is it going to help
you
get a job? Is it going to help you be a better person, father or husband or whatever it is?
Yeah. And what will spending hours perusing social media and news cycles or the TV or whatever, how is that going to benefit you in a way that instead of, say, gardening or reading a book or taking an online... There's so many free online courses that are right now. Just do one.
Just do one. I was perusing different courses. I'm taking actually a Rob Wolf. Rob Wolf has a course, right, on just diet and a few other things. So I got back into Rob Wolf's podcast. I hadn't listened to it forever.
Yeah.
It's such a good podcast. The guy's such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to like keto and nutrition and a bunch of other things. Like he's kind of the father of keto, I think, like the keto movement. He's
definitely like the mainstay ambassador that has lived the life, proved it's livable.
Right. For
multiple kinds of people, because he and his wife have different ways of reacting to food.
Right.
Right. And they show that. And I think that they do a great job at doing that.
Well, that was one thing I think you and I have talked a lot about food specifically.
We both like to eat.
Yeah, we both like to eat. This
like
is our moose hide. Well,
mine,
but Trevor was there. He was very, very much part of that entire trip with, it was myself, Trevor, John Dudley, John Barklow, Andy Stump. We had a fantastic trip up in British Columbia. Mm-hmm. So thanks, Trudeau, for the moose. I really appreciate it. But one of the things that Trevor did, which I thought was fascinating, is, and we both agree on the utilization of the animal to the greatest capacity.
Yes.
Right. So what Trevor did and kind of explain to everybody what you did after you shot your moose, which was a Boone and Crockett moose. It was a huge moose.
He was huge. Well, he was 1 inch under Boone and Crockett.
Are you kidding me?
1 inch.
1 inch?
Which
is still a monster, dude.
It's gigantic. Yeah. It was like 184 inches or something.
Yeah, that's taller than me.
Yeah.
I just made that up. I don't know. But
yeah, I think it's taller than you.
Yeah, it is. I'm only 67 inches, so yes, it is.
It was a huge moose. And I had told everybody there that I wanted to process the whole thing myself, as much myself as possible. Obviously, it's a 1,200-pound animal, 1,100-pound animal. Like I'm gonna need some help moving them around and that sort of stuff. And like you were there helping skin and process some of him, and we all did that on all of our moose. Yeah, like everybody touched everybody else's moose in some capacity.
Yeah, we were all touching each other's meat.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hot and cold. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do all the processing to learn the skill because it's a thing that has been getting passed down for so long amongst humans that I really wanted to learn it and do it myself.
Right.
And I think Dusty and Bert told me I was fucking crazy.
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. They're like, that's stupid. You should take it to a processor.
How many times in your life, though, have you heard that's stupid? You shouldn't do that.
Oh, my Lord. Do we even want to play that game?
Sorry.
That might be
just blew out the mic.
That might be a go signal for me. I don't think you should do that. Oh, really?
That's stupid. You shouldn't do that.
I see. Okay.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was cool because I watched Trevor over the course of several days break down.
It took about 3 days total time. Yeah. Like from the time we got him hung up and started skinning him,
right? Truly
skinning him, to the time that I had it all packaged in vacuum sealed bags.
Right.
About 3 days.
Mm-hmm. The weather. You were dressed up like a mountain man Dexter.
Yes.
And
sick of mountain man Dexter.
We had killed a few moose up there, by the way. So when we started killing, it was like the floodgates had opened, and it was.
When I got that one, it was immediately another one got shot.
Yes. So we had moose everywhere. Oh, yeah. There were moose parts everywhere. We were eating moose every night. We had
moose loin like the first night, moose again the next night, moose for breakfast. It was ridiculous.
It was amazing. Yeah. It was such an amazing trip. But Trevor's over there for 3 days because the temperatures were perfect. It couldn't have worked out better. It was above freezing, but below like 45 degrees. Right. A little bit of snow flurries, which is absolutely perfect to process an animal and leave it hanging out, which is what I did. And I was taking a quarter at a time on top of that big Yeti cooler that I brought up. Right. So, thanks to Sloan for providing that so that I could put a whole moose in it. Right. Almost. And I used it as a table and just learned how to process a gigantic animal. How many? Because you had brought up some knives with you too. Yeah. Were those half face or Tor? Whose knives? So I had Tor knives up there, and I had an axe. Yeah, a small hatchet, like a Winkler. Was it a Winkler or was it? I had a Winkler with me, but I also just had like a useful like a Holtzbrook or something. Like a hatchet. So what I'm getting to is what were the tools that you needed? Oh, okay. To take this entire thing apart. Take the whole thing apart. I brought up 2 fillet knives. Yep. I brought up a skinning knife, which is the one from Tor. I brought up a slightly larger knife, which was like an older one I had while I was in the teams. Mm-hmm. And then I brought up the tomahawk, not really to use it. Right. And then the axe and what else? A set of the Havalon surgical knives. Oh yeah. Which you really do need them if you're going to be doing that much skinning and that much processing, because once you get down to the little tiny stuff, like you just need those knives. Like it's easier to work with. So you need everything from a scalpel all the way to an axe to break an animal that size down. And you can use a bone saw. I'd never done it. Nope. No. Right. No. Yeah. No. So I asked a lot of questions, and basically I was like, I've processed some smaller animals, not the whole thing. This is the first big game animal I'd processed the entire animal on. Right. And I told my guide that. I was like, I want to do it all. So he let me crawl inside the
carcass and like
Yep.
gut the whole thing. And he was helping with that because he knew that it would just be quicker. But
Correct.
man, I am so happy I got to process that whole animal. Yeah. It was a huge pain in the ass, though.
Yeah, well, it looked like
it looked like it. I think I was tired every night.
You were tired every night because you were working from like sun up to sundown.
Yeah, breaks for lunch
every day. Breaks for lunch. But were your wrists or your hands getting?
My hands were
super
smoked.
sore.
So smoked.
Right.
Well, because you're moving like each quarter weighs like I don't know about as much as I do.
Right.
You know, mid hundreds to close to 200 pounds, depending on which side of the animal it was.
Right.
And I was moving all that stuff around, and it took me, that first quarter probably took me 5 hours to do, 6 hours by itself. That was the one I was really learned on, was that very first quarter.
Right.
And holy shit, it is way harder than I thought it was going to be. Like, more power to all the butchers out there that can just break down a steer in, one day.
Dude,
like,
I look
holy
at those
shit.
because I've looked
and cleanly
at those butchering videos, like how to butcher wild animals, and seen really competent people break
skilled
them down.
People.
It is like night and day, the level of proficiency of watching somebody break it down where you're like, oh my God,
yeah,
man, I can't even keep up with you.
I felt like a chimpanzee with a typewriter. Like, I think I got it. Oh no, that's not for eating. Like, yeah.
But you hauled off how much meat did you
somewhere
take?
in the range of 550 pounds.
Huge.
Yeah. So it was a ton of meat, a ton of meat. Like, that filled up my entire truck. I rode on the bump stops all the way back to Utah.
Yeah, so he's got a taco, and he loaded that thing completely full. And then we both drove out of Canada because I was taking my moose, you were taking yours. I did it differently. I just quartered mine, and then I dropped it at my buddy's processing facility in Idaho.
Granted, though, I did shoot mine first of the group, and I had about 4.5 days to process it on site. So I did have that luxury where I think I had said to everybody, like, yeah, if I shoot it on the last day or second to last day, I'll take it to a processor. I'm not going to be that guy that's like, hey, please keep camp open longer for me to be weird.
Which I was surprised because I thought it was going to be a huge pain in the ass.
To drop it off?
To get it across the border. I thought this was going to be like a nightmare of just bureaucratic inefficiency.
Yeah, like you found a dinosaur and you're trying to steal it.
Fuck. I went through there and I was just, I wasn't like sweating bullets. I was just expecting this is going to be a prostate exam from the border, right? Nothing.
Yeah.
Just walk in there and like, oh, you got a moose? Cool. Chunk.
Same story. And you said it to me. You're like, how mine was real easy. Let me know how yours goes. I get there and you're like, how'd it go? Like, pretty easy.
Pretty easy.
What you got in there? Moose. How much? Like 500 pounds. Oh, that's a big one. Yep. Cool. See ya. Like, well, that was easy.
So that told me everything I needed to know, which is next time I go up, there's just zero doubt. I'm driving up.
Oh, yeah.
Hauling it back. Every time.
That was too easy.
Because the meat, we've been eating moose. When did we do that hunt?
October.
When was that? So that was October. So my family and I have had at least one meal a week since October that's been moose. It lasts in Texas. We either ate whitetail or moose, but I think we had one meal in 5 weeks that was not, wildish. Yeah. So it was either the whitetail that I shot on the Mexican border, or it was the moose that I shot. Those were good,
Super good.
Oh my gosh. Those. So another hunting story. So this is just like Trevor and Evan's like hunting stories. Like, so I went to British Columbia. This is we're gonna lose everybody.
FYI, we paid for all those out of pocket.
Yeah. So
like, let's not. Yeah.
Like
I know sometimes people are like, "Oh, so special." Like, well, no. I mean, it was my money too.
It was my money.
I was terrified that I wasn't going to get a moose. It was expensive.
Super terrifying. Then the whitetail that we shot, it was a culling hunt that we did. So like there's, there are things that you can do. It's just like a whitetail, like any other animal.
I mean, I shot last December, I shot a doe, or a cow elk, and it was a depredation tag.
Yeah. And those tags are like how much? $200?
They're basically, next to nothing.
They're next to nothing. And then how much meat did you get off your elk?
A couple 100 pounds.
Yeah. And delicious, I would imagine.
Yeah. And that, I am so glad when I shot that elk, I could not have been happier that I had processed that whole moose.
Right.
2 months prior or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because we walked over to that elk, pulled her aside, and I literally, from shooting that animal, except Garrett helping me drag it to the ATV, I did every single ounce of processing. I gutted her, put the guts in a bag because I wanted to keep the organs.
Right.
Pulled the tongue out, put that in a bag, took her home, put it in my truck, drove her back here, put her in my garage, and then did the entire skinning and processing in my garage with tarps laid out. And got every ounce of meat off that damn animal.
Well, I think that's a good point, which is one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, where you and I are starting our hunting later in life. You didn't hunt.
Later. Yeah.
You started hunting, what, 2 years ago?
2.5 years ago.
Yeah. 2.5 years ago. Really, like, I hunted when I was a kid. Then, joined the military. This whole 9/11 thing kicked off, and then I
tiny little conflict in the Middle East.
Yeah, I didn't spend any time developing that skill set.
Yeah.
In the mountains, even though I wanted to, but I was never home long enough. So what I was trying to do was develop other skill sets that I would need, like multi-mode transportation skill sets and things that I would need to be a success in a hunt or a long, extensive fishing trip. So before I was even in Black Rifle Coffee, and I was just carrying a black rifle around for a living, my recreation was always been outdoors for the most part.
Yeah.
And my dream has always been to be really proficient at all of the skills that get me really deep into the backcountry, so I can have this interaction with animals that you really can't pay for. You actually have to work for those experiences.
And I think you and I share a lot in common about that. We've talked about that a number of times. Like, I don't want to be self-sufficient because it's cool, but because it offers an opportunity to do things that are so difficult that they force out people that refuse to do it.
Yeah.
Because I want to be there.
It's a selection process, right?
Yeah.
It's the way that we look at it. It's a selection process. Like, I went for a run this morning, and I'm thinking about that selection process even when when I was running in Texas, when I was running this morning. I'm thinking about the selection process in a way where I was like, dude, I've got to get ready. I've got to get ready because I want to put in some miles this summer I can put in some miles this fall, because I need to be able to have these really epic interactions with animals that hopefully I eat, and then some animals that I'm not going to eat.
Yeah.
But that's what the whole thing is all about, right? Where we look at, for me, being able to hunt and kill a moose or hunt and kill an elk or a turkey or whatever it is, bring that back and have this have this meal with my family and watch my girls eat something that I killed, something that I processed. It's such a rewarding feeling. And by the way, most of the guys that I know that I grew up with, they don't, they're not executives in, corporate America. They're not wealthy. They're blue collar guys. This is the way they grew up. It's the way I grew up. I just haven't done it forever. And this is how they supplement their food for their families. This is a way of life. So we're not even talking about things that are so inaccessible based on how much money you put into them. Aaron Schneider is a good example of that. Aaron Schneider has stick bow, and he's making long shots on big animals.
It's doable if you put
all the time.
Put the work in.
But you got to put in the work, right? So it's such a different mentality for people if they just decide, I've got to put in the work, right? Yeah. And it doesn't change for either you, for me, or anyone. There's no easy road to any of these things. No. You can't bypass and cut a corner. Sure, we could try to find some easy hunt. We could go out and shoot an animal, and then they could process it, and we could put their head on the wall. We could probably go make that happen.
Oh yeah.
One, that doesn't even come close to something that we want to do, and two, I like the entire process. So I was shooting 100 arrows a day in Texas to the point where my shoulders were like fucked.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
are your elbows and shoulders just smoked?
No, I've taken about 3. Well, my road trip, because I drove my family in our camper back from Texas.
Tuesday or so.
Yeah, so it's been 3 days on the road.
Yeah.
My shoulders feel great, but I put in a lot of arrows because I know that come this fall, I'm going to have to walk a lot of miles. I'm going to have to throw an arrow, and I might have to throw an arrow.
Hammer down.
I might have to throw an arrow an extended distance, and I better not fucking miss.
Yeah, and then after that, like that's why I wanted to learn to process, is because then a lot of work starts that is... I felt so comfortable doing that with that elk.
Right.
And I know it'll only get better, but that's also extra load and emotional strain that you don't have to deal with if you're like, once I kill this thing, or if I get this thing, I don't even have to worry about it. Like, I got this.
Yeah.
No problem.
It's a level of proficiency and confidence that you can take care of it.
Yeah.
And I think, if you decide to do it a different way, there's that way.
That's
for
fine.
sure.
Yeah.
But at least you know that you have the skill set in order to accomplish that.
And then, like we talked about yesterday or the other day, like following that whole process, you still have to cook it.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like a huge food cooking nerd. I think you've seen that.
Are you a Traeger sponsored?
Lacey knows that.
Are you a Traeger sponsored athlete?
I think the term is an ambassador.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Sponsored.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, I'm on there like.
But you're
Rolodex of humans.
Yeah, you're there because you've got a grill.
I do.
You spend a lot of time on that thing.
I take a lot of pictures of it.
Yeah,
and me and the grill.
Traeger's located here in Utah. We do a ton of stuff with those guys. It's just a really cool company. They're a few blocks over from us. Great people. This isn't a paid advertisement for Traeger.
No, they're just
trying to tell you
they're friends of ours.
Yeah, they're friends. They've got a ton of mutual contacts within the people that we hunt with. My wife has been using it. She got super into it for the last month. So, is that your preferred method of preparing wild game?
Yeah. And actually, the other day I cooked. It was wild caught, but it wasn't. I didn't catch it. Salmon on the Traeger, like a super classical cookery way. Like I mandolined a bunch of potatoes and then scaled them onto the flesh side of the fish, and then skinned side down, put it on the Traeger.
Nice.
So like you can go as far as that, or as primitive as a whole leg of hog, which I've done that too.
Yeah, so a whole leg?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A whole hog leg.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and how long does something like that typically...
It depends on the temperature. So I actually had this conversation with my neighbor yesterday because he came over and lent me a wheelbarrow, moving a bunch of gravel around. Nice. And I'm like, oh man, I got something for you. So I ran into the freezer and I gave him an elk roast. And gave him a recipe and all this information on how to cook it. And he asked the same question. He's like, how long does this take to cook? I'm like, well, a lot of the factors that go along with cooking and a lot of how to keep food tasting really juicy, meat specifically, especially wild game, which we're talking a lot about, is letting it come to room temperature enough and then cooking it. So
why?
You maintain a much more even cook cycle through there because your start point internally is closer to that 65 plus degrees.
Okay.
Right? As opposed to pulling it out of the fridge where a lot of people's fridges are running at 34 to 35 degrees.
Okay. Gotcha.
So you're doubling the temperature.
Right.
Which then gives it a much more even cook. So you're not getting that charred outside and rare inside. Yeah. You're getting more of the rare to medium rare all the way to the edge of that thing. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with something like a Traeger, which is kind of like a convection grill oven thing combo. Yeah,
I'm still yet
it's
to
the hot air all around. It's I call it like a convection oven that's a grill.
Got it.
All right, so that's kind of how it functions. Like it pushes hot air around.
Right.
With fire underneath, you get a really even cook around the entire thing, so you don't need to be sitting there flipping it.
Right.
You might flip something once to keep the juices running back the other direction. Mm-hmm. But if you let it come up a little bit, it could only take 4 or 5 hours for a whole hog leg.
Got it.
Right. But like a fish, that'll take 15 minutes, maybe.
Interesting.
And a lot of it is just dealing with temperatures and hoping that you're not going too far. Like if you overcook something, you're screwed.
Well, where are you? Do you have like a phone app, or is a Traeger phone app?
So no, I actually run like 3 different thermometers inside the thing.
Really?
So I go like full on like hyper nerd about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So the meat gets a thermometer.
Yeah.
And then the Traeger itself has a thermometer, and then I'll put like another thermometer in like veggies or whatever,
Okay.
and check them. And then I have a hand thermometer that I run, and I'll check double check the meat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like you've seen that. Like I check like a hawk, because if you miss it, and thanks, John Dudley for showing me this. Like if you miss those temperatures, you're making jerky.
Yeah, so that's my problem. So I'm only running the one thermometer probably in that. So, and I'm missing those temperatures a lot.
Yep. Get a Thermapen.
Got it.
So if anybody's listening, a Thermapen, they're not cheap. They're, I don't know, $50 or $70.
Right.
But totally worth it. They get within 1/10 of a degree.
Look at that.
Wow.
See, Thermapen. I'm going to have to add that to.
They're freaking
definitely.
awesome.
Once again, this is not a paid advertisement for Thermapen. I'm interested in this because I've been trying to up my game on the grill, and just the one thermometer. I think that's probably my big problem. And I've seen like John does some incredible things on the Traeger.
Yeah, and I've learned a lot from him, and I've learned a lot from another friend of mine, somebody you met, Erin Blevins.
Yeah.
She's taught me a couple things that she uses in the oven that now I have transferred onto the Traeger, and it's working
like what?
phenomenally. Like meatballs using cupcake tins.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they each cook evenly, right? And in their own juices and stuff, right? So it's things like that I'm starting to figure out. And a lot of this I took from, I know I can cook relatively well over an open fire on cast iron.
Yeah.
So I figured a lot of those techniques would work on a Traeger, and they have.
Right.
And I'm glad that that's a skill that I've been figuring out the last 5 or 10 years. It's cast iron cooking on a fire.
See, I'm better at that.
Yeah. Which, that's a skill all by itself. Like, that's a pain in the ass if you do it wrong.
Well, in a Dutch oven, I think I'm semi-proficient at Dutch oven cooking.
You're a Dutch oven admiral?
I don't know. I mean, I can cook things in it. I'm proficient. I can cook things in it, not burn the fuck out of them. I understand the whole concept of them. So if you've never worked with a Dutch oven, it's pretty easy as far as the concept.
Yeah.
You've got a big pot essentially with a big steel lid. Big steel lid, and you put coals on the top, coals on the bottom, and you just continue to monitor the progress of whatever you're cooking. It's fairly easy. You can use them too. You can put fire directly on the bottom. You can put fire directly on the top. You can use them as
you can flip the lids.
Yeah.
Use them as a grill top.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're super cool. Very diverse.
Yeah, they are.
They're a very diverse cooking utility piece. It's a great piece to cook with in the backcountry.
Oh yeah, and I think if you have a mobile camping situation like a vehicle or an ATV or a horse, you need a Dutch oven.
Yeah.
And like a small cast iron pan, and you're good.
I would agree with that. I think it's two.
Items.
I think you need two
and a stand.
For sure. If you had two big,
like
a big, I like the big cast iron pans and then a small cast iron pan.
Okay, yeah, like an egg pan and then like an everything pan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because then if you're doing a bigger meal, you can prep cook in the smaller, and then you can transfer as you're blending in multiple different layers into one. But you can use it's individual preference. It's however you like to run your gear.
Yeah. And once you're going with cast iron, like you're just assume you're going to have 20 pounds of shit. So
I roasted coffee the other day on cast iron on a campfire. It was great.
That's cool.
It roasts super uneven. So I mean, it's because you have to constantly flip it. And I had this giant cast iron pan, and I was like, "Hey, Logan." Logan and I were bullshitting about something. I was like, hey, let's go roast coffee on the fire. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, man, those guys are going to be over here in like 15, 20 minutes. We got enough time. We'll just roast coffee on the fire. What's so interesting about it is it roasts really uneven, which is a good thing and a bad thing, which is the taste profile is kind of strange. But then you have all the smokiness from the campfire that blends in with the coffee.
Probably the seasoning from the pan.
It's such a strange coffee because it was an Ethiopian, it was a Yirgacheffe coffee. Some of the beans were darker. I picked a lot of the darker ones out, so I had a fairly consistent light and a fairly consistent dark with a really smoky profile.
That's wild.
On this Ethiopian coffee, and I hand ground it and did the whole process. It was super fun because a lot of people, I think, they get hung up on, coffee's super complex, and it is. You have to be able to do it correctly.
Yeah.
You have to understand what's happening with the coffee bean. You have to understand the whole process. You have to understand after a few million pounds of coffee, I think I've got the process relatively dialed in my head. I understand what's going on.
I think it's similar with cooking food. And,
right.
It's a self-sufficiency thing, and it's a comfort level. And if you're comfortable cooking food over a fire or at home just on a pan, that opens up doors for you to eat how you want to eat, not how you're prescribed to eat based on the box of food that you have to put in the oven.
But when you can't cook for yourself, you like to go to Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's. Oh wait, I'm just joking.
on 3300. Yeah, it's a self-sufficiency thing, and I heard a study that shocked me, which is that it's not that most people don't know how to cook that was shocking. It's that the people that don't know how to cook also don't even own the equipment to cook.
Wow,
so
really?
They couldn't even have learned how to cook if they had wanted to learn how to cook. They don't have pans. They don't have pots. They don't have spatulas. They don't have spoons. None of it. That's what shocked me the most. This is in the United States specifically, right? So you're talking, you don't even have the car to get to the place. You don't even have the vehicle to drive you there.
You don't have a car, which, that doesn't surprise me, the car thing.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this a lot, where I like to cook with fire, for instance, right? So gas grills, I like fire. And I think there's this connection between what we've been doing for, we'll call it at least the last 200,000 years of our evolution. If we look at the modernization of a human being, we're only 10,000 years, give or take, into the agrarian society, and we're only a couple hundred years away, and not even a couple hundred. We're less than 100 years away from cooking on fires all the time.
Yeah.
So I think there's something innately human.
It's caveman TV for a reason.
It is. It's so innately human to cook with fire. It's so innately human to cook, period.
Yeah, to cook food.
Yeah.
We are the only creature out there that intentionally does that with food.
Well, I think it's part of the catalyst of being a human
It is.
And what separated us from essentially, apes.
And
we decided we were going to strike a couple stones together and build a fire.
We still are apes. And,
yes.
And part of and the anthropological assumption is, and they're guessing that a group learned how to cook over a fire or from a fire, and that helped create a larger brain mass.
Right.
And that pushed us to be a distinct species or a distinct subspecies from chimpanzees and bonobos, which we split from at the shortest about 2.5 million years ago. Which is not very long.
Not very long. Not in the entire...
Not when you think we split from orangutans like 12 to 20 million years ago. It's run those, you start running numbers in your head and you're like, man, we've only been these pet humans for a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and I think that we're
domesticated.
Yeah, we're specifically with the domesticated human.
Yeah, which we are.
Which we are, but even from, we just take the last 10,000 years of humanity and we say, well, the last 10,000 years is a blink of an eye compared to the time that we've been on the planet. In the last 10,000 years, we still were living in, dirt floors and organizing our food as far as gardens and animals. This has been a very
local
distinct,
and sustainable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's been local. It's been sustainable. But we still had a portion of our society that were deemed as hunter-gatherers well up until just, I would say, less than 1,000 years. And when we look even in 1,000 years, when you look at the Aborigines in Australia, when we look at the Native Americans here, we look at the tribes in South America and some of the tribes in obviously North and South America, if we took them all into consideration, but
then we're still doing it.
We're still doing it.
many of those tribes are still hunting and gathering based on a subsistence style of living. And what's very interesting for people to realize, and now they're seeing it with how this pandemic has played out across the world, like all the first world is running into the same issue, which is you can't just stop growing stuff, right? And you can't just stop feeding cattle. So if the supply chain shuts down, right, our system is actually very fragile, the first world system. What's interesting is the hunter-gatherer system, as much as we like to put this very ugly, dirty, caveman-y, Hobbesian view on it, their lifestyle is very, very sustainable and very, very resilient. Oh, that food source just disappeared because that kind of tree has a disease. Well, we eat 3,500 different kinds of food.
Right.
As opposed to the first world where most people eat somewhere in the range of like 24 kinds of food. 24. That's like an orange is one kind, an apple is one. I'm not talking different kinds of apples.
Right.
These people eat that many different kinds of animals and plants.
Right.
So they have a very resilient system. That's why humans lasted so long. Our system now is hyper fragile, and people are seeing that. So maybe we need to look at how to marry the two together so that we can have some sustainability and some insulation from outside interference, so maybe if you can pick up hunting, or if your neighbor hunts, maybe you can garden and then trade vegetables for some meat. Like, there are ways to insulate yourself from this kind of nasty social impact of a system that is innately fragile.
Well, I think the more this time plays out, right, the more this entire thing plays out, the more I continue to go back to something that I've felt for a long time, which is there's no greater feeling than being in the backcountry. There's no greater feeling than, being free, and being free of your watch, and being free of your phone, and being free of all the trappings of technology of modern society. Now, granted, I have yielded the benefit of those things, but as a human being, and understanding what I'm connected to, and really kind of what turns me on as an individual. Yeah. When I look at the amount of antidepressants that are consumed on a daily basis, and the opiates, and the problems that we have within America, I can't help but think and hope what this is doing for people is it's helping them tune out of their technology, tune in a little bit to their environment and the locality of their food. Yeah. And I think that the stigma for a lot of guys is that, and I've seen this across the board in a lot of different places where there's a stigma attached to it, where it's like some hippie shit, right? Where you start getting into sustainability. Yeah.
Oh, you weirdo, you're gardening.
About like sustainability or solar power or any of these other issues. And they're like, oh, you must be some hippie. And I'm like, dude, I'm about the furthest fucking thing away from what you would define as a hippie.
I mean, like that joke that we made a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
What is it, like
Birkenstocks and suppressors?
Suppressors, like, come on, dude.
Yeah. Well, I think when you're free, I think really what we're explaining is freedom, because when you have confidence, you're talking about going out and harvesting an animal and being able to break your animal down, being able to put that animal in your freezer, use every aspect of it, and do all of that yourself.
I mean,
that's freedom.
I just made 2 gallons of bone broth that now I'm using as soup bases, gravy bases.
Right.
Like I saved the whole hide. I'm going to pull the fur off. I'm going to do it like this next week or the week after, and I'm going to turn it into rawhide. I'm making rawhide drums out of it. So, like,
I've never been able to understand that for people, my peer group or people that I've known, where and I'm not putting anybody down in their recreation or their lifestyle. Let me put that out there. But I've had this debate internally with my friends because, I've got some friends that are way into football where it just consumes every waking extra minute that they have.
Their calendar year starts whenever
it's the
preseason
UFC
starts,
or it's football, or if it's baseball, or it's golf, or one of these sports,
one of these voyeuristic sports
that means nothing.
Yeah.
It can't make you a better person. It can't help you feed your family. It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you better. is just a time suck. And to me, the way that I look at those things, and I've never quite been able to put these things together and logically frame up why they're doing it, because they're like, oh, it's fun for me. And I get it because I like the statistics involved in those things. But I'd much rather do, ballistic charts and learn a new skill directly attributable to something that I want to accomplish in my life than trying to figure out who is going to score more touchdowns next Sunday. It's a personal bias. I understand that. So I'm not putting down anybody that's really into that. I'm saying for me, when I look at the time that I have available in the day, the time that I have available in my weeks and my months and my years, when I'm at the last minute getting ready to fucking die, I'm not going to look back on my life and think, man, I wish I would have seen more Raiders football games, or I wish I would have played Pebble Beach.
No shit, right?
I'm going to think like, oh, fuck, dude, I wish I would have been on one of those stone sheep fucking hunts, or, I should have spent more time with my kids, which actually I don't think that's going to happen, because every day I mitigate against that fear by spending more time or quality time with my kids. So I know that's not going to happen. I think when I look at these things with, no regrets, I'm looking at it saying you have to curate skill, and that takes fucking discipline. It takes discipline to be able to do these. You can't just sit down and watch a fucking football game and then make spreadsheets. That's super easy.
Yeah.
If you want to be a competent hunter or fly fisherman or mechanic or whatever that might be, like, you actually have to go.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. You actually have to put yourself out there.
I get to wake up every morning and walk out and check the garden and make sure if anything needs to get done, and then I have to water that bitch, and it's not going to be done for a couple months.
It's not going to be done for a couple months. But how much more interesting and how much more connected are you to your being as a human? And I would love to see the statistics to the people that are more connected into the outdoors and living a very fulfilling outdoor recreation life, and the people that are not, and who's on more antidepressants. I would love to see the direct correlation, because I guarantee it's there. I guarantee it's there.
Yeah.
And not that antidepressants, people have to use them at times. I'm just saying I think it's a directly attributable circumstance to modern America, that we are not conditioned to sit in boxes in buildings all day long with no sunlight in fucking chairs. We're not conditioned to do that. Nobody can argue with me
people are
about
seeing
this.
Digestive issues. They're seeing back problems. They're seeing all sorts of weird shit that humans shouldn't be getting.
No.
And a lot of it comes from that. Like, there are very simple things that they've seen that have measurable impact on somebody's mental well-being and physical well-being, which are solid sleep schedules.
Man, I wish I could get that.
Not timing. Like, not necessarily like you have to get 8 hours, but it's just like go to bed at a time-ish and get up at a time-ish. A lot of water and being outside in the sun to start your day for 10 to 20 minutes. Like, there are some very simple things that you can do that most people just refuse to do. Instead, they wake up either too early or too late, groggy or hungover, immediately take the first thing that they can put in their body, which is usually over-caffeinated, crappy coffee by the multiple cups worth, right?
Or an energy
as fast
drink.
As possible.
Or an energy drink.
Yeah, or an energy drink. A bunch of sugar, which we're not built for also.
Right.
Right? And then they just run about their super anxious day. Instead of changing your schedule and just going to bed a little earlier, getting up a little earlier, going and standing in the sun, drinking a glass of water for 10 minutes. Like, that will change your life.
It will. I started doing that a few years ago. Directly that specific.
That's like literally how my morning is. Like, I get up.
It was Aubrey Marcus when we were talking about it. I was like, hey, so give me your morning routine, because I was super unhealthy. My lifestyle was very unhealthy, it wasn't that I was doing anything overtly wrong any day of the week. It was just the combination of a lot of factors: long work hours, a lack of sleep, So I wasn't watching Netflix till midnight, right? I was working in the business till midnight or 1 o'clock. Sometimes I'd pull all-nighters, depending, right?
Burning the candle at
It was burning
both ends and the middle.
And then getting up in the morning super early. So I wasn't sleeping enough. Mm-hmm. Then when I would work out, I would be injured because I wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
Right. Then I was making really unhealthy food decisions.
Which then adds to the getting injured, because if you're eating really poor food and processed food, then you're going to have a bunch of like latent inflammation in your body, which is going to help you get injured. And it turns into a shitty sleep schedule.
That was my life.
Yeah.
For quite a while. And it took a while for me. I was discussing this with, I think, Tim Kennedy the other day. Not to name drop, but he is a high performance athlete, right? He is a machine. Obviously, Tim is a machine. And
I think he's actually the Terminator.
He might actually be a robot. He might actually be a robot.
The government might have built him. We're not sure.
So I was trying to pick his brain, man. Like, what do you do?
How are you this?
And Tim's just like, man, it's super easy. Like, I just eat the right foods, get lots of sleep, have lots of sex. I just do the things that humans are supposed to be doing, and I'm pretty good. You know,
but that's no bullshit. Like, you look at animals like bonobos or chimps or gorillas, right? You know, the ones that, well, chimps and bonobos are our closest relatives. Like, we literally share all but 3% of our DNA sequence with them. Gorillas, just a little bit off that. That's what they do. They eat stuff that they're supposed to eat. They screw all the time, and they're kind of happy, and they run around as much as they want and sleep as much as they want. And you look at them, and they're healthy as fuck.
They seem to be.
You're like, oh, they have no weird things going on. Strange. And we have all the things going on.
I wonder if they have cancer within those. I wonder if there's a cancer rate. There has to be a cancer. There's cancer in
there's cancer in
pretty much everything. But I wonder what their
sharks.
cancer rate would be. That'd be interesting.
Yes, yeah.
But to this point is, I love this conversation with Trevor because we have this conversation most of the time when we're together. Is like
just when we're bullshitting. Anyways.
It just takes a little bit more discipline.
Yeah.
At night, I have to turn my phone off earlier. I have to shut my laptop, turn my phone off.
I throw the do not disturb little thing on and just toss it off onto the counter.
And you have to drink a little bit more water.
Yeah.
You get up. Now I have a firm commitment in my life to the things that I do in the morning are very, very easy. I don't even start my day without getting outside like straight away, especially now because it's beautiful. The weather.
Oh man, it's perfect right now,
it's
right?
perfect right now.
48 degrees between.
In the wintertime, it gets a little bit rough in Utah. In the wintertime in Texas, it's already summertime, basically, so it doesn't really matter. But if I'm in a hotel, if I'm traveling, it's the same routine. Turn my phone off. Don't turn it back on again. I start answering Slack messages around 6:30, but I've already been up for an hour, give or take. Like, I was up at 5 this morning, kicking around. And
I always know. I'm like,
There it is. There it is. Yeah, but I think that's the point where, for me, when I look at these things, I've had to make adjustments in my own life to increase the amount of discipline on things where in our previous life, in our previous existence, people would always say, sleep is a crutch. You're going to sleep when you're dead. You're going to do all these things. Really, really unhealthy way
just
to look at life.
Drink more coffee.
Drink more coffee. Take more, anti-inflammatories. You live on ibuprofen and coffee and Copenhagen, and that is a recipe for burnout. Yeah. And you're going to hit a brick wall in your life. You're going to hit it.
And it probably just keeps getting recycled because the guys that they're selling that to and the guys that perform that way are dudes that have relatively decent physical genetics and are between the ages of 18 and 23.
Correct. So
nothing can kill you.
Yeah, at that age, you can't see the direct results of your poor decision making.
But we can feel it now.
Yeah, I can feel it.
It's
I can
fantastic.
feel it every day.
It's so
I can feel it in my left knee, my left shoulder, my back.
Right hip, left shoulder.
I can feel it everywhere.
Fantastic. Yeah.
But that's, for me, I think it's applying discipline in different areas of your life. And I think if you're only looking at it from this really big general concept to you have to have more discipline. Well, that's pretty fucking easy for somebody to say, right?
It's super easy to say.
But if you're just, what I like to think about is eating the steak at, one bite at a time.
Yep.
If you're trying to fix everything at once, the best analogy is you're trying to boil the ocean. Yeah. But if you look at things and say, I'm just going to concentrate on this for the next week. I'm just going to concentrate on this for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm going to try to get this as a habit. For me, I have to do that.
Yeah.
So sleep was a big thing for me. And I've talked about it on multiple shows, multiple times. It was such a big issue for me. It still is.
Well, shit. I mean,
I have to get more sleep.
Sometime last year, I think you were talking about feeling kind of shitty, and I think that was one of the first questions I asked you. I'm like, how much are you sleeping?
Yeah. My body wants to get up at 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
My body every night, it does not matter if I go to bed at 10. I get up somewhere between 3, 2:30 and 4. There's
it could have been just habituated into you, and you just got to like outgrow it. Just push it.
So every night every night around 3, normally, or I shouldn't say normally, in my previous life, 2 years ago, I would just get up.
Yep.
I would get up at 3. I'd be like, fuck it. Time to get up. Let's rock and
Get
roll,
some
man.
things.
And I'm like, I beat Chaco by an hour and a half. I'm on my game.
That's right,
and
Chaco.
Then by like 10 in the morning, I'm a dumpster fire.
Because it's a full day you've already run.
I've already done my full day.
Yeah.
So
And it's breakfast for most people.
yeah, it's breakfast.
Shit, you want some French toast?
My kids, I'd be making my kids breakfast, and I feel like I've already been up and accomplished an entire day's worth of shit.
Because you did.
Because I did. And I should have been trying to take a nap or something like that. But, you push through. Now, because of those years of doing that, now I have to put myself back to bed, concentrate on getting more sleep. And
it's all, like you said, it's like one bite at a time. It's all like building or rebuilding habit cycles. Like that's why I wanted to go shoot with Mark this morning. Like I knew that I needed to rebuild those habit cycles, and that's why we did what we did on the range. Like all we did were multiple target engagements with 2 to 3 shots at different distances and draw drills. Like, look, let's just do stuff that's a little complex, not a lot.
Right.
And a little difficult, but not crazy, that will make our heads work and show us where we're deficient from lack of practice.
How great of a shooter is Mark Twight, by the way?
He's good.
Yeah. Because he was a competitive shooter.
He was a competitive shooter.
So Mark's going to be on the show a little later in a few weeks.
Mark is the shit.
Mark is a pretty incredible human being. I think that's an understatement. He's an incredible human being.
He is.
So
he's a great person.
On
Just
top of the fact,
yeah, like as a person, he's a great person. It's been a real pleasure getting to know him really well, and then being able to see him shoot and shoot with him, and it's going to be cool. Like we're planning on doing it weekly-ish.
How far away was the range from downtown?
We went out towards Dugway.
Oh, okay.
So like 45 minutes.
That's not bad at all.
No, not at all. And we had a gong that he has, like a hanger.
Yeah.
I had it like 120, 130-ish.
Nice.
That we were doing like kneeling rifle and then some target stands for IPSC stuff.
See, that's all you need.
That's literally if you have a certain level of competency with rifle and pistol, like, and some combat shooting experience, that's all you need. You need nothing else. You can run all damn day with 3 targets.
Oh yeah,
like forever. Because everything else you can just kind of like imagine or pretend your way through based on previous experience.
That's all.
If you're a brand new shooter, you should probably go to a flat range with some setup targets and ranges and like work your way into that.
If you're a brand new shooter,
brand new.
If I've been trying to tell people this is, there's a lot of brand new shooters out there. There's a ton of new gun owners. I would highly recommend what you do is you go to a qualified instruction.
Yes.
And seek it. Find out your local range.
And be honest.
Yeah, be super honest because there's a lot of guys out there that really don't know what they're doing. And it really, right now, if you're brand new to a pistol or a rifle, the thing that you have to learn is how to be safe.
Yes.
It's just how to be safe. And if you plan on carrying this thing, if you plan on integrating it into your life, you really have to understand how to be safe and effective. But first things first, just try to understand how to be safe. You don't want to have a negligent discharge as you're cleaning a pistol or cleaning a rifle in your house.
And it's tough, I think, for people that are brand new to that have never been exposed to rifles or pistols or shotguns, when they see videos that are out of control, the volume of those videos that are on the internet right now of people that come from similar-ish backgrounds to ourselves that you see somebody manipulating a rifle or a pistol, and it looks fluid and smooth and easy, and they're moving around in a way that seems, oh, that's just how you do that. Not understanding that guy has had hundreds of thousands and thousands of hours with that system in their hands, getting yelled at, telling them that will kill another person if you do something wrong.
Yeah, they've had hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars,
poured into
who they are, poured into them.
Yeah.
And I think...
it looks like I'm being not as, quote, careful by motion, but if you're tracking where I'm moving, you see the training that's in there.
Yeah,
and that's why people need to go to a course or something.
It's like, if I could put out a really good analogy, is if you've never driven a car before and you just go down for the first time at 30 years old, and somebody hands you the keys
to a Ferrari,
to a Ferrari, and they're like, all right, let's get you out on the track, kid. You know, you don't want that experience. That's not an experience you want. You don't want to seek that experience.
Yeah. No.
Like, even if somebody were to tell Trevor that's not possible, I'm pretty sure he would say, yeah, you're probably right on this one, because that's not what I want to do.
Nope, I'm good.
You got to crawl, walk, run. It's like beaten into our heads.
And there are so many good instructors out there. And even, from the local NRA certified guy all the way to the, the Mike Glovers, like at Fieldcraft, like you can run the gamut of, I just want to know how this functions, to I want to be looking like the cool guy.
Yeah. And there's a ton of guys out there. Like you said, there are a ton of guys out there that are, post 9/11 vets from very qualified units that are teaching courses that are very safe. And they're not even, maybe they weren't even mill guys. They were law enforcement guys.
Marshal Service, FBI, DEA, you never, like, it doesn't matter. The guy can still, everyone can be a great instructor and put out solid, safe information, and that's what people need.
Well, and I will say this about the NRA, which is, I've taken some hits for supporting the NRA on some stuff that we've done. And, I always go back to, the NRA is one of the largest certifying entities in the United States. Mm-hmm. They train more first-time gun owners on safe carry, handgun, than any other institution in the United States. It's an American institution. I'm like, at the end of the day, I don't care what the politics and the Game of Thrones bullshit that's happening over there. I don't really care. Like, they do them. But
it's not here nor there.
No, you have a bunch of members and you have a bunch of people that need a certifying institution that teaches people how to safely handle firearms. Because what that does is it continues to propagate a positive signal of gun ownership.
Exactly.
It continues to qualify people that are going to be safe, that are going to treat firearms with respect, that continue to institute the rules of safe firearms ownership. That's the type of ecosystem we want to be part of.
And for me, that's always the important thing to focus on, because those people that get certified or taught, same thing with hunting, same thing with gardening, same thing with any of the stuff we're talking about that gives a person control over that part of their life, or understanding and information and some sort of confidence. The important thing to realize is the third order benefit.
Right.
It's their girlfriend, their boyfriend, their brother, their sister, their neighbor that now is comfortable with that being around and has an understanding of the information that's being provided, right? That creates a space where information is power, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't know, you will be afraid or misunderstand something. But if you know, like my neighbor, right, didn't grow up around a lot of guns, like, but me being around and talking to him about that and about hunting and giving him some meat, and that is a step towards that family changing some of their perspective and lifestyle in a way that they deserve. Everybody deserves that information if you can have it out there.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I think back on just the times in my life where I've had to use a firearm as a deterrent.
Yeah.
And, here on our facility a few years ago, there were people that were trying to rob the facility. They were here and they weren't going away. The firearm became a deterrent at that point. I didn't have to use it, but it was there, and I used it in order to persuade them to do the right thing, which was turn around and leave, versus trying to physically assault me, which
could have been interesting.
It could have been super interesting, but it's there as a deterrent. We have firearms in our home. Of course, we're very safe with them.
Yep.
And I understand too, when I come into the house, where does the firearm go? Where is it put away from my kids to make sure that my 6-year-old or my 3-year-old, they understand. I've had a series of short and long conversations with both of them about guns in the home. They've been to the range with me. They understand, and they're acutely aware that they don't touch guns. And when I say this, they're never really in a position to touch the guns to begin with.
Like the things aren't laying around with their Legos.
We'll just say it's a safety mechanism, and it's a redundant safety mechanism that they know they're not supposed to handle them or touch them. They understand that they're in and around our lives. But there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of people, I should say, that are very new to firearms. And it's like you have to have a safe place to put them.
Yep.
You have to be safe when you're carrying them. You have to be within the laws of your community when you're just carrying firearms as well. Yeah, because as you're crossing state lines, as you're going through different cities, you still have to adhere to their carry.
What are the legalities?
Right. What are the legalities?
Ignorance is not an excuse.
It's not a defense in court either.
That's not how the law works. If you say I didn't know, they would go, well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I've done it before because if I'm carrying a pistol, for instance, and I'm leaving the state, most of the time, when I say most of the time now, I'm fairly familiar with my drive routes and where I'm going and what the gun laws are, but I've done that multiple times in my life where if I'm driving, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out what state am I driving through and make sure that my gun is in the correct condition.
Yeah.
Because if I get pulled over for any reason whatsoever, the last thing I want to try to explain is, why are you carrying a hot pistol under your seat in this state when it's completely illegal?
Especially if it's as simple as it just needed to be over there or in there or not like this. Or like there are... It's not like they're telling you to take the thing apart and put it in your trunk.
Right.
Like, Jesus. Sometimes it just needs to be out of arm's reach.
Well, and if you don't know, there's a default mechanism there, right? Where it's like, if you don't know...
Put it somewhere where you can't get it.
Yeah, put it somewhere you can't get it.
Unload
it and put it somewhere you can't get it. You're good.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
At that point, it's paperweight.
Unless it is banned in the state, and then you might have an issue. Yeah, you might have another issue. But... that's a totally different conversation we're going to have for, I think, a much, well, not even a much later date. You're going to be more of a regular here on Free Range American. So I think before we sign off, the Black Rifle Coffee subscription is a fantastic way for not only you to get great premium fresh roasted coffee every month, but we also have a ton of discounts with partnered retailers that are in the firearm space. So ammo manufacturers. There we go. Ammo manufacturers. I finally got it. Finally got my mouth to work. To target manufacturers, to different training facilities. We've got great discount codes across the board. So join the coffee subscription, have access to those. And if you're already a Coffee Club member, log on and use your discount codes. I built the subscription, so your coffee will pay for your passions.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. This is Trevor Thompson and Evan Hafer, Free